Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome on into your FreightWaves Now Community Spotlight. I'm Kaylee Nix, and joining me on this Friday morning is Mary O'Connell, host and writer of our Running on Ice newsletter and show, aka the coolest community in freight. Mary, as always, thanks for joining us. No better way to start a Friday, right?
I know, guys. It's it's lame to not start your Fridays with all things running on ice. Honestly, it's just kind of lame to not spend your whole Friday thinking about nothing but the cold chain community.
Right, because as I mentioned, the coolest place to be in the freight space. And we've got another good segment today highlighting your episode that's coming up later on this afternoon. And we are bringing back a repeat guest this week and talking about a pretty exciting subset of the cold chain, the direct-to-consumer model. And so let's talk a little bit about Grip to start and talk a little bit about CEO Juan Weisel and his company and why he is a repeat guest for us.
So first of all, I love Juan. I love Grip. They are fantastic. And I'm so happy that they came back on the show. And honestly, when it comes to direct-to-consumer, specifically direct-to-consumer temperature controlled freight, honestly, there is no one better to talk to than Juan. He got his start, helping Butcher Box and everything like that. So he got his start, saying, hey, consumers, you can actually get things that are cold delivered to you. And so now that, he spent a decent amount of time kind of educating consumers that, yeah, you can get a birthday cake, frozen meat, anything, you can get that delivered to you. Now they've just kind of moved from what they started out as like a kind of a software as a service type model of, making sure that you knew how to package things and not necessarily waste dry ice or gel packs or anything like that. How you knew that you were going to get your goods there in the state that you wanted them to get in. They've actually also opened up this fulfillment center model because their customers just kind of said like, can you just do this for us? And honestly, to me, there's no greater flex than your customers coming to you to say, can you just handle this thing that you don't even technically do right now? But if you could just do it for us, that'd be great. Like, to me, that is the biggest flex of all time.
When it comes to direct-to-consumer temperature-controlled goods, I think everybody still has this very antiquated idea of like the original D2C brand, the Swan Man, right? You would see them come into your neighborhood and you'd be like, as a kid, is this the ice cream truck? And then you'd be really disappointed when it ended up just being the Swan Man. But this is kind of the way that things started for us. And that's almost, I think, ingrained in the way that we look at D2C temperature controlled freight. But companies like Grip, companies, as you mentioned, like Butcher Box and a lot of these food delivery platforms are really changing up that model and using a unique service instead that is subscription-based or using things that are a little bit more individualized to each person, right? How has D2C temperature control changed in the last maybe 20 years or so? And how is Grip continuing to capitalize on those changes in that market?
I mean, it's kind of, to say it's changed is kind of an understatement. It's kind of gone through this mass evolution because like you mentioned, it used to be the Swan Man, or it used to be, to go to the grocery store. And even if you lived like, 40 minutes away from the grocery store, you would have to pack a cooler of, ice and everything for you to put all your frozen goods so you could go home because, popsicles melt, ice cream melts, things start to melt. So when I lived in a more rural area, people would come to town and they would make a whole day of it. It would take them an hour and a half and they had to, keep all of the frozen stuff that they needed for the month cold. And so, we go from something like that or localized deliveries, if there was a Schwan Man in your area. And now I can literally click a button on my computer and a box of frozen meat will show up for me. A box of fresh produce will show up for me. A box of pretty much anything that I wanted that otherwise I would have had to maybe, drive an hour and a half. If I don't live in a major city, I would have to drive a distance for. It can now just show up at my front door. And it's, not really any extra cost for me, potentially depending on what solution I had before. It's saving me money because I don't have to drive an hour and a half into town. So it's one of those where it's night and day different. We even the Grip even has kind of the the predictive model of like, for example, weather events. We talked about that. And if they know that, okay, well, if we're starting in one state and when our destination's in another, and there's, a snowstorm in the mountains, maybe we either delay it a day or send it early if we can, so that way that customer's delivery isn't interrupted by that weather front. And if that is going to be delayed a day, that proactive approach of, hey, due to weather along your route, your stuff's going to be delayed today. We're very sorry. But to me, if someone tells me ahead of time, like, hey, there's weather going on, you should, like, we're going to delay your stuff, I'm going to be like, wow, you remembered that I have an order and you cared enough to check the weather before you left? Okay. All right. So it's kind of that full evolution of, getting people what they want in an easier fashion, and also that communication that comes with it as well.
One of the other things that we talk about in cold chain all the time is sustainability, right? And I think when you're talking about D2C models, specifically when it comes to these types of maybe regularly scheduled deliveries or things where there is a subscription model in place, sustainability is one of those things that is very highly valued as your customer. So then it should be valued as your service provider, right? What is Grip doing to help promote some of these sustainability practices? Are we talking about reusing cold packs, like maybe doing, we deliver a package and we pull back your packaging from the last delivery that you got, things like that?
So it really depends on each individual customer that they have. So, you'll have some maybe that are kind of like, for lack of a better comparison, kind of like that loop system where, if I send you something in reusable materials, you have an empty bag that I pick up when I make your delivery. So that's kind of what loop does for the average consumer, but that's on things that aren't just necessarily temperature controlled. So it truly is kind of depending on what that customer wants to do for their own products and their own kind of temperature controlled aspect of it. But Grip really comes in and says, like, hey, you might have been using 3 ice packs before. Well, if we get your stuff in, if you have a major market in, I don't know, Illinois, well, we're going to put you in we're going to get you a fulfillment center that is closer to your major market and where most of your deliveries are happening. So that way you don't have to use as many ice packs. You can really cut down on the insulation, other things that you're using. I think they said that most of the points they can get to pretty much anywhere in the US within 2 days of any of their fulfillment centers. But like 50 to 60% is within a day. And so if I can get just about everywhere I need to be within a day, then that means I'm not spending as much on keeping things colder longer. It just really needs to get there. It just really needs to survive 24 hours or less. And that really buys you a lot of time with some of the frozen things. And it's just so much easier, especially when you kind of have the predictive analytics and where things are going to get held up and where they're not. And then really their solution has just to come in and been like, okay, you can cut down the amount of gel packs that we're using. We can cut down on pretty much anything, you name it. It's just a matter of kind of, building out the network and figuring out what solution works best for that individual customer. And that's what they do so well, is that customized solution.
It's almost like shortening your supply chain is a way to not only better support your customers, but also help out your sustainability goals. Who would have thought? Mary, so of course, we've got the show coming up later on this afternoon. And for people who are wanting to subscribe to your newsletter or to get in with the FreightWaves community, where can they go to do that?
Yes. So if you want, just keep watching YouTube's here. Go ahead and hit that subscribe on FreightWaves. Make sure you get those notification bells so that way you won't miss any episode of any show that we put out. But more importantly, if you want to subscribe to that newsletter, you can go to freightwaves.com/runningonIce. And you can find everything that you want to know about cold chain. You can, if you really want, but you can go back and read everything we've ever published about it. But that would be quite a while. But hey, I can think of no better way to spend a Friday.
There you go. You got to watch the YouTube videos on 2 times speed, and then you're going to get caught up twice as fast. All right, Mary, thank you for joining us. And of course, we'll catch up with communities later on this afternoon.
Thank you, guys.